At 1:47 a.m., I was forced into a psych ward to then uncover the shocking truth about betrayal, surrogacy, and lies. They told me I was insane while strapping me to a hospital bed at 1:47 a.m., the smell of pine air freshness stinging my nose as the restraints dug into my wrists. My own mother leaned over me, her voice flat and sharp. "It's for your own good. Gary, you're not thinking clearly." I remember screaming back that I was fine, that I was being set up, but no one listened. The fluorescent lights buzzed, the machines beeped, and my old leather wallet, something I'd hid since high school, sat on the cold metal counter, out of my reach. It felt like the last piece of myself I might lose. That night, everything I thought I knew about trust and family burned to ashes. What led to it was so ordinary, almost boring. My business partner Linda and I had been working late, splitting cheap ramen noodles from a styrofoam cup while finalising invoices. I was exhausted, but proud of my little startup had finally grown stable enough that I was paying myself a steady $3,200 monthly salary. Nothing luxurious, but for a 24-year-old it was survival. Or so I thought. Looking back, the seeds of betrayal were planted months earlier. I was the kid who always believed in loyalty, in giving people second chances. In high school, I used to defend Kate, my sister, when classmates teased her about her stutter. I'd stand in the hallway, clutching that same leather wallet filled with bus passes and scraps of paper with half-written lyrics, and tell her, one day they'll see you're stronger than them. That bond with Kate carried me through some of my darkest moments later, but back then I couldn't imagine how badly we'd both be tested. When Linda first came into my life, she seemed like the only adult who took me seriously. She was 32, polished, confident, the kind of person who could walk into a boardroom and make people lean forward. I was just a kid who still ate ramen for dinner 4 nights a week. She told me I had vision, that she believed in me when no one else did. And stupidly, I believed her. I didn't notice the first red flag until last summer. My parents started acting strangely around Linda like she was family already. They'd invite her to Sunday dinner without telling me, praising her maturity and stability. Meanwhile, they'd glance at me like I was some reckless teenager, even though I was paying rent on time and keeping the business afloat. My dad actually said once, "It's good to have someone responsible around you, son." Responsible. As if I were a child playing at being an adult. The breaking point began small with whispers. At the grocery store, neighbours gave me pitying looks. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe they just didn't know what to say after seeing me struggle through long work hours. But then Kate pulled me aside one evening. "Gary," she said quietly, her eyes darting to the window as though someone might be listening. "People are saying things. That you've been unstable." I laughed it off, but my stomach twisted. "Unstable? Because I'm tired? Because I'm stressed about payroll?" She shook her head. "No, like dangerous. Mom's been talking to people, and Linda too." It felt like being sucker punched. My own family, the partner I trusted, they were painting me as some kind of mental case. And then came the night I was forced into the psychiatric ward. I'd been at the office late, my desk littered with coffee cups and empty ramen wrappers. I was working on a presentation for a potential investor when 2 men in uniform showed up. Behind them was Linda, her face calm but cold, and my mother clutching her purse like she was headed to church. "Gary Thompson," one of the men said. "We have a hold order. You're coming with us." I froze. "What are you talking about? I'm fine. I'm working." Linda stepped forward. "Gary, you need help. We can't let you hurt yourself." The betrayal in her eyes was worse than the restraints. At 3:47 a.m., lying in that yard bed, I realised this wasn't about my safety. It was about control. And I had just lost mine completely. The first red flag had exploded into a nightmare, but I didn't know then just how deep the betrayal would go or how it would destroy everything I thought was real. The morning after they locked me in that ward, I sat staring at a bowl of oatmeal that tasted like cardboard, wishing I had even a packet of cheap ramen instead. The walls were blank, the lights too bright, and every sound made me jump. My body was there, but my mind kept floating above me, like I was watching someone else live my life. That was my first dissociative episode. I didn't know the word for it then, but I felt split in two. When they finally let me out, the world didn't feel the same. The smell of pine air freshener lingered in my nose, like the hospital had followed me home. My parents picked me up, acting like they'd just rescued me from myself. "You'll thank us one day," my mom said, squeezing my hand. I yanked it back. "You lied. You let them take me." She looked offended, as though I'd accused her of stealing a spoon, not my freedom. Linda, of course, was waiting at my apartment. She had somehow gotten in, reorganised my desk, and even tidied my wallet. That old leather wallet had always been private. I carried scraps of notes, receipts from nights out with Kate, even a photo of me and Dad fishing when I was 10. She flipped through it casually, like she owned me. "Gary," she said, smiling too warmly, "we just want you to focus on healing. Let me handle the business for now." I should have shouted, demanded my keys back, but instead I froze. That's what the had done. It rewired my brain to doubt myself. I told myself she was helping, but maybe I really wasn't okay. But cracks started showing. First was the surrogacy arrangement. Kate had told me privately that she'd agreed to carry a baby for Linda. At first, I thought it was noble. Kate wanted to help, but something didn't sit right. Linda made it sound like a business transaction, not a family arrangement. She talked about controlling the narrative and ensuring custody rights. Kate's voice shook when she told me I just wanted to do something good. "Gary, I didn't realise," and then she'd trail off. I started keeping notes, tiny scribbles on receipts I tucked into my wallet. Dates, times, strange comments Linda or my parents made. I remembered what my therapist once told me in high school when I had panic attacks during exams. "Write it down. Facts anchor you when your mind doesn't." One night, around 11:20 p.m, my supportive neighbour, Mr. Reeves, knocked on my door. He was in his 60s, the kind of man who brought over soup when I looked tired. He leaned in close and whispered, "Guy, I don't want to overstep, But I heard things. They were planning something with the lawyer. I recorded part of it. You should listen. He handed me a flash drive. My palms went sweaty. When I plugged it in later, my heart nearly stopped. It was Linda and my parents clear as day talking to our family lawyer. Mon's voice, we'll need to prove instability long term, that weight custody isn't contested. Linda, once the paperwork's in place, he won't stand a chance. His reputation's already in question. And then I got our lawyer, who had known me since I was a kid, replied, I'll make sure everything you tell me stays off record. No one needs to know how this really unfolded. Hearing that broke me in a way the hospital never could. The lawyer I trusted, the one who'd given me advice about my first job, was actively betraying me. From then on, every whisper in town felt louder. The neighbours looked at me like I was contagious. At the grocery store, I heard a woman mutter, that's the unstable one, poor family. At work, clients started backing out of deals. One even emailed me directly, Gary, we can't be associated with someone going through issues. I barely slept. When I did, nightmares clawed at me, visions of being tied down, people looking at me while I screamed, but no sound came out. I'd wake up shaking, drenched in sweat, staring at the clock 3:47 a.m. again and again. Kate tried to protect me. She'd come over with coffee, sit at my kitchen table, and whisper, I don't know how they convince everyone, but I believe you. I see what they're doing. Her support kept me alive, but it also terrified me. If they could twist reality so easily, what if they turned on her too? The more I uncovered, the more paranoid I became. I started noticing cars idling near my apartment longer than usual. My phone felt like it echoed with someone else's breathing when I was on calls. I didn't know if I was imagining it or if they were really tracking me. That's what the trauma did, it poisoned trust, even in myself. But deep down, I knew I couldn't just survive this. I had to expose it. And thanks to Mr. Reeves' recordings, I finally had proof that my paranoia wasn't all in my head. The red flags weren't just warnings anymore, they were evidence of something massive. And I was about to stumble into the ugliest truth of all. The night I finally pieced it all together, I was sitting cross-legged on my kitchen floor, ramen cup in one hand, Mr. Reeves' flash drive in the other. The broth had gone cold, but I kept spooning it absent-mindedly, tasting salt and cardboard while my stomach twisted. The pint air freshener in the hallway drifted under my door. Every smell and sound felt like an accusation. I'd spent weeks transcribing the recordings Reeves had given me, cross-checking dates, filing screenshots of texts from Linda, invoices she sent, even odd notes in Kate's surrogacy paperwork. One line stopped me cold. If any of this leaks, we'll just disappear like before. Disappear. Like before? I searched through old records, business filings, public news stories. Around 2 a.m., bleary-eyed and trembling, I found it. Linda's late husband, the one she told everyone had died in a car crash 2 years ago, had never been confirmed dead at all. No death certificate. No obituary. Just a police report of a missing person under a different name. They'd faked his to cover up a financial crime in another state. And the surrogacy? It wasn't just about Kate helping Linda. It was a way to launder assets through custody payments and medical bills tied to an unborn child that legally didn't even exist yet. I sat there until the clock blinked 3:47 a.m., the same cursed time from the hospital. My chest hurt. My hands shook so badly the spoon clattered to the floor. This isn't real, I whispered to myself. This can't be real. But it was. The next morning, I called Kate. We have to talk now. She came over pale and jittery, still in her scrubs from an overnight shift. What did you find? I pushed the papers toward her. They're using you. The surrogacy. The custody. It's all a scam. Linda's husband isn't. They're moving money through you, Kate. Her hand went to her mouth. No, Mom said. She's in on it. I snapped, then instantly regretted my tone. I'm sorry, but listen to me. They're going to take your baby. They're going to ruin us both. Kate stared at the documents, tears slipping down her cheeks. I thought I was helping someone have a family, Gary. I didn't think. She trailed off, trembling. I reached for her hand. It's not your fault. That afternoon, Reeves came back with more recordings. He'd been at a community centre event where my parents and Linda had met with the family lawyer again. This time, the lawyer actually bragged about our airtight plan. Reeves, whispering like a spy, said, I've been around a long time, son. I've seen people destroy each other over money, but this is something else. You need to be careful. I uploaded the new files to a hidden cloud account. My heart pounded as I read a transcript out loud to Kate. Mom's voice, we'll make sure Gary's signature is on the transfer documents. He won't even know what he's signing. Linda, once custody is finalised, we can dissolve the business and move the assets offshore. He's too unstable to fight it in court. Lawyer, by then, public opinion will be against him. He'll be lucky to get visitation rights. It felt like being skinned alive reading those words. My own family plotting to make me legally irrelevant. Word was already spreading in town. The neighbours who once nodded at me now crossed the street when I walked by. At the gas station, 2 teenagers whispered and laughed, one pointing at me like I was an exhibit. Even my barrister gave me a strained smile instead of chatting. My reputation was gone, shredded by rumours of episodes and dangerous behaviour. I started having panic attacks so bad my vision blurred. Once, in the grocery store, I dropped a jar of sauce and the crash sent me to my knees, clutching my chest, gasping. People stared, but no one helped. Therapy became my only lifeline. Twice a week, sitting across from Dr. Patel, I spilled everything. She didn't flinch. Gary, she said one session, this isn't about you being broken. This is about a system of control. Trauma rewires your brain to doubt your own reality. You're starting to reclaim it. Her words gave me a sliver of strength. But the more I prepared to fight back, the more dangerous things felt. An anonymous envelope arrived at my door with just one word, stop. I stared at it, heart hammering, and knew I was too deep to back up. Kate squeezed my shoulder. What are we going to do? I swallowed hard. We're going to expose them publicly where they can't twist it. I didn't know yet that the perfect opportunity was coming, a public event where all of them would be in one place, smiling, pretending to be respectable. And I'd be there with the truth, ready to blow their whole world apart. The auditorium smelled faintly of pine air freshener, just like the hospital room that had haunted my nightmares. I sat in the back row, hands trembling around my old leather wallet, trying to steady my breath. Linda and my parents were up on stage, celebrating Mr. Hensley's retirement, a perfect setup, everyone in a hall, live streaming, dozens of witnesses. My plan was simple: expose them in front of everyone. As the clock ticked 3:47 p.m, Mr. Hensley raised the microphone. It's been an honor working with all of you for 35 years. I waited, heart hammering, adrenaline sharpening my senses. When applause died down, I stood abruptly, the hall going quiet. Excuse me, I said, voice shaking but loud enough for cameras and the live stream to catch every word. I need to say something important. Gasps rippled through the audience. Linda froze mid-smile, her hand tightening around a champagne glass. My parents' faces went pale. I know it sounds unbelievable, I continued, gripping my wallet like a talisman, but everything you've been told about me being unstable was a lie. My parents and Linda orchestrated this: psychiatric goals, fake diagnoses, lies to the community to take control of my life, my business, and even manipulate a surrogacy arrangement involving my sister. A murmur went through the crowd. Someone whispered, "No, wait." I pointed to the large screen behind the stage. I have recordings, legal documents, and proof that Linda faked her husband's to cover up criminal activity. The lawyer you trusted? He was feeding them confidential information, plotting custody fraud, and destroying my reputation. Linda's lips trembled, eyes darting around as panic set in. My mother's face was contorted in anger and disbelief. You look me in the eyes and lie while I'm at my lowest, I shouted. Do you even know what you've done to me? The panic attacks, the nightmares, the dissociative episodes, do you care? My voice cracked. I collapsed slightly against the podium. Someone in the audience gasped. Another pulled out a phone to record. The whole was deadly silent except for my own ragged breathing. Linda's hand flew to her mouth. Gary, this isn't fair. No, it's exactly fair. I cut her off. You planned this for months, maybe years. You thought I'd never fight back, but the truth always comes out. Then came the final twist. I looked past them at a familiar face in the crowd, Mark, my closest friend since college. My heart stopped. He had been smiling innocently, nodding politely to Linda and my parents. And then I realized he had been the one feeding them information from my startup, alerting them to meetings, even coaching Linda on what to say to the lawyer. You, I yelled, pointing at him. You were behind all of this from the start. Mark's expression faltered, then hardened. Harry, I did what I had to do. What? I screamed, the room echoing with my disbelief. You betrayed me? After everything? The crowd gasped again. Cameras clicked. Some audience members were whispering, shaking their heads in shock. Social media notifications started blowing up on my phone and the live stream was catching every moment. Linda finally snapped. She stood, voice shaking, pleading, Gary, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. I roared. And now everyone else does too. Security rushed forward, but by then the damage was done. My parents slumped into their seats stunned. Kate, who had slept in quietly earlier, came to stand beside me, holding my hand, giving me the strength to finish. I was manipulated, slandered, and isolated, but today, you all see the truth. No more lies, no more control, no more stolen life. The auditorium erupted, some in applause, some in stunned silence, others in outrage at my parents and Linda. Reporters were already pulling phones from pockets, filming the meltdown. My heart pounded with a mix of terror and relief. The world finally knew. Afterward, police and legal authorities arrived, already tipped off by my evidence. Linda's faked husband situation became front-page news. My parents were questioned about their involvement in the custody and psychiatric deception. And Mark? He faced a restraining order and public exposure of his betrayal. I felt a dizzying mixture of vindication and exhaustion. The panic attacks were still there, but this time I had fought back instead of succumbing. The nightmare that began at 3:47 a.m. months ago had transformed into a turning point. I realized that even though trust had been shattered, truth could still reclaim it one confrontation at a time. As I walked out of that hall with Kate, the night air smelled faintly of pine from the auditorium's decorations, and I laughed quietly to myself, thinking, we survived. And now we fight to rebuild. After the confrontation, the world outside the auditorium didn't feel like mine anymore. Headlines were brutal: family betrayal, shock stand, business partner fake death, manipulated young entrepreneur. Social media had exploded with clips of my meltdown, strangers dissecting my voice cracking, my shouting. The neighbours I used to nod across the street stared at me with judgmental eyes, whispering as if proximity could make me contagious. Even Mr. Reeves, who had been my lifeline, urged me to stay home for a few days, saying gently, people can be cruel, let it settle before you go out again. I retreated into my apartment. Every object reminded me of betrayal: my leather wallet, now shredded from gripping it too tightly during the speech, the cheap ramen cups that symbolised my meagre independence, receipts scattered across the floor, proof of bills I'd been paying while my parents and Linda schemed behind my back. I hadn't eaten properly in days, just sipped water, staring blankly at the walls coated in a faint aroma of pine air freshener. Sleep was non-existent. My nightmares returned, more vivid than ever, Linda smiling while signing documents in my name, my parents whispering as I screamed silently, and Mark standing in the shadows, laughing. When I finally did drift off, panic attacks jolted me awake, heart hammering, gasping for air. 3:47 a.m. became a curse. Every ticking second of the night echoed the hospital room where my nightmare began. I started therapy sessions with Dr. Patel thrice a week. The office smelled faintly of coffee and antiseptic. She guided me through grounding exercises, helping me distinguish between dissociative episodes and reality. She wrote, "The trauma rewired your trust circuitry. Gary, it's not broken, it's cautious. That's survival." Yet the cautious wiring made every interaction feel like a test. Even Kate's reassurances sometimes felt like hidden traps. Financially, I was a mess. My $3,200 monthly salary barely covered rent and living expenses, let alone legal fees to untangle Linda and my parents' manipulations. The business had suffered, clients withdrew, citing reputational risk. Even at work, whispers followed me down corridors. "He's the guy who lost control, unstable." I could feel eyes on me during every meeting, colleagues exchanging looks I couldn't reach, couldn't convince. I attempted normalcy once. I went grocery shopping, thinking maybe some ramen, noodles and instant soup would anchor me. But a group of teenagers snickered behind me. There he is, the crazy one. My body froze. The pasta slipped from my fingers. I dropped the bag. My face burned with humiliation. The trust I had in the world had evaporated. At home, I realized the betrayal ran deeper than I had imagined. Even my family lawyer had helped cover up Linda's schemes. My parents, Mark and Linda, had coordinated meticulously, isolating me socially and financially. It wasn't just a surrogacy nightmare, it was a systemic attack on my entire existence. I started journaling obsessively. Every interaction, every sound, every smell. The raspy breathing during my panic attacks, the bitter taste of instant noodles, the fluorescent buzz of a failing light documenting anchored me in reality when dissociation hit. I kept all the evidence in my leather wallet, which became both a talisman and a reminder of what had been stolen. Therapy sessions introduced MDR, movement desensitization and reprocessing for trauma. Dr. Patel guided me through reprocessing the betrayal memories. I felt the weight lift slightly, but the world outside still felt foreign, alien. I trusted fewer people. Even Kate had to prove her loyalty every day with small gestures, making coffee, keeping me company while I recovered, whispering, "You're not alone." Isolation became my reality. Friends avoided me, wary of the media storm. I was alone in my apartment, cooking ramen, pacing, checking files, sleeping with nightmares, and battling panic attacks. Yet, in the quiet moments, I realized I was surviving. I was still here, despite every attempt to erase me. It was a dark, suffocating period. But even in the rock bottom, I noticed one truth: exposure had saved me from further manipulation. I couldn't undo the betrayal, but I'd reclaimed the narrative. That became my fragile lifeline, a reminder that while trust was broken, hope could slowly be rebuilt. Recovery didn't happen overnight. The first months were grueling: therapy sessions, legal battles, and sleepless nights replaying every betrayal in my head. But I learned to take it step by step. I created routines that grounded me: morning jogs, journaling in my leather wallet, and cooking cheap ramen noodles for comfort, a small reminder that I could still take care of myself. Every smell, every sound, every mundane act became a tiny anchor to reality. Dr. Patel became my lifeline. She taught me coping strategies for panic attacks, grounding exercises for dissociative episodes, and ways to rebuild trust in others. "Trust isn't rebuilt all at once," she said one session, leaning forward. "It's earned in increments, by people who prove themselves repeatedly, and you'll know when it's safe." Her words sank in slowly, like rain seeping into dry soil. It was my first test. She never wavered, sitting with me through therapy sessions, holding my hand when I had nightmares, and never flinching during my episodes of mistrust. We created a signal, a squeeze of the hand that meant I was okay and could lean on her. Gradually, I allowed her into my world again. Slowly, I realized family could still be safe if they chose loyalty over fear or greed. Legally, I rebuilt my business. With evidence in hand, I dissolved the fraudulent contracts Linda had orchestrated and regained control over my startup. The $3,200 monthly salary that had once felt modest became a stepping stone, not a prison. I was finally in control of my finances and my life again. Clients returned when they saw my transparency and strength. The whispers and judgment of neighbours began to fade as my reputation was restored, though scars remained visible in subtle stares and invisible in the cautious part of my mind. I also embraced social connections cautiously. I joined a local community group and reconnected with old friends who had supported me through nothing but kindness. The supportive neighbour, Mr. Reeves, became a mentor figure, helping me navigate life outside the trauma, giving practical advice while laughing gently at my obsessive note-taking and ritualistic routines. And then, unexpectedly, love arrived. Emma, a volunteer at the community centre, noticed me fumbling with paperwork and offered a smile. She didn't ask about my past at first. She just showed up, consistently, gently. Over months, I began to trust again. Small things at first: sharing a cup of ramen, walking through the park, telling her about minor panic attacks without fear of judgment. Her presence felt safe, healing. Slowly, I shared the deeper horrors: Linda, my parents' betrayal, Mark's duplicity, and she didn't flinch. "I believe you, Gary," she said once, taking my hand. "And I'm not going anywhere." That moment shattered a lingering fear I carried for years, that anyone who knew the truth would leave. Trust, once shattered, could be rebuilt not perfectly, but real, authentic, and empowering. I kept therapy, MDR, journaling, and physical routines as pillars. Each month, I reviewed the old documents, not to obsess, but to see how far I had come. My leather wallet, once a symbol of trauma, became a testament to survival, a place where I stored memories of resilience, photos of moments with Kate and Emma, and reminders that I had survived orchestrated betrayal. Now, years later, I sit in my kitchen, the faint aroma of pine from an air freshener my sister gifted me, sipping soup, laughing with Emma and Kate. Panic attacks still come sometimes, but I've learned grounding techniques. Dissociative episodes happen less frequently, and when they do, I recognize them as signals, not failures. My nightmares have softened into dreams of control and safety. I've learned that life can be rebuilt after profound betrayal. Trust can grow again, cautiously but powerfully. Love can arrive unexpectedly, teaching patience and safety. And even when your world is ripped apart by those closest to you, it is possible to reclaim it one step, one breath, one anchor at a time. I never imagined I'd find peace after being manipulated, stranded, and isolated. But here I am, living proof that survival, courage, and the slow reclamation of trust can lead to something real, enduring, and profoundly healing. And every time I glance at my leather wallet, now freight but full of life instead of pain, I remember I survived betrayal. I survived the nightmare. And I learned to trust and love again.